Okay. If you can start, it's okay.
Yes. Should I introduce myself, or will you say
No.
something?
I do that. Please let me make that, and I do that in Portuguese, and of course, then you can introduce yourself in English. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. So I speak Portuguese now. We are very pleased to receive um, um, our friend from Portugal just came in also to receive Christa Sommerer, and then I will talk in Portuguese. So in my name, in name of Suzete, Venturelli, and all the team that made this meeting.
Põe por aqui, isto aqui não dá, põe no computador.
Ok. É um prazer muito grande termos aqui conosco a Christa Sommerer, que vai apresentar o trabalho dela. Eu vou falar agora em português, evidentemente, para que há 30 anos, né, Christa Sommerer e Sommerer Mignonneau colaboram para criar instalações de arte interativa que combinam ambientes naturais e artificiais. Eles projetam seus projetos como sistemas de interação abertos, aleatórios e evolutivos, em que cada visitante gera imagens tridimensionais, únicas e repetíveis em tempo real. Em suas obras, a arte se torna uma experiência perceptível, em que o usuário explora a natureza orgânica e artificial de forma intuitiva, transmitindo a ideia de como pessoas somos parte integrantes e co-criadores de sistemas vivos, sejam eles naturais e artificiais. Christa e Sommerer Mignonneau, que são uma dupla, e são também um casal, são artistas de mídia de renome internacional, pesquisadores e entre os pioneiros, né, da arte interativa. Eles trabalharam nos Estados Unidos, 10 anos no Japão, e em 2004 criaram um departamento de culturas de interface na Universidade de Arte e Design em Linz, na Áustria, onde ambos são professores. Christa e Sommerer criaram cerca de 50 obras de arte interativas que foram exibidas em mais de 280 exposições internacionais, várias delas, ou algumas delas, aqui no Brasil também. Eles receberam inúmeros prêmios, entre eles o Austrian State Art Award em 2021, o Arco BIP em 2016, em Madrid, o Wu Ganzhong, que é da China, e o Golden Nika Prize do Ars Eletrônica em 1994. Então, um prazer enorme de ter a Christa Sommerer aqui conosco, né? We are very happy to have you here with us. So it's with you. Thank you very much, Christa, to be with us.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Gilberto, for these kind words and nice introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm very happy to be with you here virtually. Hello, all my friends in Brazil. Hello, Suzette. Hello, Milton. Hello, Giselle. Hello, Priscilla, and all the others. It's nice to see you here virtually. And as Gilberto said, I'm going to introduce a little bit the Artwork as a Living System exhibition, which was a retrospective, and also is the title of a book that just came out at MIT Press. Gilberto already mentioned it. I'm at the Department of Media at the University of Art and Design in Linz, where Laurent and me have set up the Department of Interface Culture, a master's program. So if you're interested in studying in Austria for a master later on, please get in touch with us. So the Artwork as a Living System is an exhibition that has been put together by the CKN, the Oberösterreichische Landeskultur, and the EMAL in Brussels, based on an idea of Karin Ohlenschläger, and probably she's also well known in Brazil. Karin was a curator and media art theorist for many years. Unfortunately, she deceased last year. And she approached us a couple of years ago to put a big retrospective exhibition together to give an overview of our works since the last 30 years, starting in the early 90s. And according to Karin, she wanted to show works that bring together science, technology, and art and also show this idea of art of the interface and art of interface, and show works that show on the one hand innovative technical interfaces where you can physically interact with virtual worlds, but also show works that deal with evolution and growth and involve the audience in these man-made artificial systems that show behaviors like they would be natural living organisms. On here on the left side, we see the invitation flyer from the exhibition as it took place at the OK Center in Linz during Ars Electronica. Here we see a shot from the website when it was shown at the CKM in Karlsruhe, the Zentrum für Kunst- und Medientechnologie, where Peter Weibel was the head for many years. And right now the exhibition is also shown in EMAL in Brussels. And we will also travel the exhibition later to Azcuna Centroa in Bilbao, and hopefully to some other places as well. So as I mentioned, the exhibition brings together artworks from the last 30 years, and the ones that you see here highlighted in red are the works that we specifically restored and reconstructed for this big, large retrospective exhibition. We would have, of course, more works to be shown, but Karin's focus was mostly to show works from the earlier periods in the 90s up to until now, but also works that could be reconstructed, because as you know, to show media artworks is not always so easy, and it takes a lot of technical effort, but also programming effort. And so specifically for this exhibition, we restored many older pieces. Here we see some exhibition impressions from the CKM in Karlsruhe. I will later talk about these works, just to give you a bit of an impression of how these works were set up. At the CKM, we had a lot of space. There was really a very large gallery of rooms available. And we always try to also adapt this exhibition to the different situation on site. Let me show you here a brief video about the exhibition as it was taking place in the OK Center in Linz during Ars Electronica. So for those of you, and I know some of you have been to Linz for Ars Electronica before, it's the OK Center right in the center of Linz. And as people entered the exhibition, they already became part of the exhibition setting. So mostly all our works are interactive. So here we see a screen that shows the actual situation, but as people walk towards the screen, they suddenly see themselves being displayed inside the screen and suddenly being kind of attacked or followed by a big swarm of flies. And when you move, these flies move very vigorously and come towards you. While if you stay still, then the flies go away and distribute again. And here, for example, there's only one person moving, but as soon as something else is moving, the flies move to the other person as well. Here we see a newer work from 2021. It's only an animation. It's an animation where we programmed artificial bees that swarm, like a swarming behavior. But at one point, these bees organize themselves and start to write some words. And in fact, it's a very simple message that these bees are writing. And they just say to be or not to be, which is of course a little bit of a reference to the importance of insects. Well, here another work where you again see yourself portrayed. This time you see yourself being portrayed with flies again. but in the opposite way. The longer you stay still, the more clearly you start to see yourself. And as you move, then these programmed flies, start to move around and swarm away, while if you stay for a longer time, you can see yourself clearly. Here, this is also a very new research project that was started together with Tiago Martins in 2019. It's a HoloLens application where you can see virtually in augmented reality parts of our archive of scanned materials, of videos, of photos, of texts. And with your hand gestures, you can zoom into this world. I will later speak more detail about it, and interact with the archive in an intuitive and entertaining way. So the idea here is to make media archives more accessible. This work is called Mobile Feelings. It's a work from 2002 where people can exchange their heartbeat and also their breath. So if they hold these devices and blow into the device, then on the opposite, on the remotely connected device, a little wind comes out, and you also feel the heartbeat of the other user in your hand. So you somehow intuitively and have a bodily connection to the other users. Here the Eau de Jardin is a very large installation where you interact with plants. And there are 8 plants hanging from the ceiling. And when people touch these plants carefully, then they see similar looking plants growing on the screen. Here we see one of our students touching ivy, and then similar ivies grow on the screen. But let me now switch a little bit to the details of the projects. So I think we saw already that we are dealing with human-computer interfaces, and our field is mostly media art, and then specifically mostly interactive art. And what we like to do is create interfaces that are intuitive and natural, and also use human senses and digitally enhance them. And what interests us is how the individual interaction that we capture through various interfaces can be translated into, for example, artificial growth, evolution, and development of artworks that only develop and exist when people interact with them. And we call this the artwork as a living system. Like in life, in real nature, everything is connected and linked to each other. And when you interact, then you also basically create the world around you. Here we see a work that became quite well known. Actually, it was even shown in Brazil very early on at the Bienal do Mercosul, where Diana Dominguez invited us back then. It's a work that is very old, from 1992. We see here Laurent interacting with the piece. We reconstructed it for the retrospective, and it's actually still exactly looking the same like in 1992. People touch plants here that are put on pedestals, and as they touch these plants, artificial plants grow on the screen. Here we see an old image from 93, but the setup is basically still exactly as it used to be. The plant, the real plant, is in a way an antenna, and when people come to the plant and touch it carefully or just stand next to it, the body voltage of people is being captured through the plant itself, and then this data that is generated is used to decide the growing parameters of artificial plants that appear on the screen. So what you get is always new gardens, virtual gardens that develop on the screen, depending on how people touch those real plants in the physical installation. So here's a shot from the OK Center in 22. Here we see a short video. we see someone touching this Cycas revoluta, or somebody's touching a small bonsai plant here. And then you see the garden behind there on the screen is developing according to the interaction. And the same principle of touching plants and creating artificial plants was also used for another installation that we created in 2004 and reconstructed now for the retrospective. It's called Eau de Jardin. So this is a new shot from 2022, where on a very large, wide, almost kind of panoramic screen with 3 projectors, these plants are hanging in front of the screen and people touch them. And this was the original version from 2004 in Tokyo, when we still lived in Japan. We had this commission from Shiseido. And here we see how it was set up back then. So we always try to keep those works as much as possible to the original, but of course with new projectors and new technology that is being used. Here a shot from the OK Center in Linz. Here a short video from the installation in the CKM. And of course, working with live plants, with living plants is also always challenging, because you need to find firstly the right type of plants, and then also find people on site in the exhibition who take care of them, make sure that they are well treated, that they have enough light, that they are watered correctly. Because working with living entities is of course different than if you would just put the technical device there. But again here, what we like about this idea, and this was actually the first piece that came or brought us to the idea of the artwork as a living system, is that you connect real life, may it be the plants or people, to virtual life that is generated by the computers, by the computer. So here we see this lady touching ivy, and an ivy is growing. And you never know exactly where these plants grow, so there's also a bit of surprise. But at the end, you get this like really very dynamic, developing and growing garden that feels a bit like it's in real nature. Then this is also a piece that has been specifically reconstructed. It was originally built in 1999 and shown not so often. It was shown in Linz as Electronica, but it was also shown mostly in Japan. And the idea here is a simulation of a train department. At that time, we still lived in Japan and took often this way fast bullet train, the Shinkansen. So we tried to create a compartment of a Shinkansen, and 2 people sit next to each other on those chairs. Then you have this kind of train window, which is a big touchscreen that we back then in 1999 had to create by ourselves because it didn't exist yet. But now you can use more off-the-shelf technology. And then if people touch the window, then a landscape which is passing by slowly is constantly changing and developing. It's a parametric landscape where all the parameters of the landscape are changing according to how you touch the screen. So it's an endless landscape of abstract forms. And the idea is that you're traveling through this kind of infinite landscape of forms and shapes that change and come, pass by, and it becomes almost a little bit meditative to sit there and see those shapes coming towards you. You can also slow them down, you can go forward, you can go backward, and together with the other user, basically travel through this almost Milky Way, or feels a bit like on a train ride or on an airplane, where shapes and forms are developing. Let me show you some more works here. I already mentioned it. Artificial life has been a big topic for us for many years. We like this idea of forms and shapes that we do not fully design by ourselves, but use genetic programming and genetic algorithms where the images and the forms develop by themselves. And we were also many years very interested in emergence of and creation of novel features where we do not all pre-design everything, but the artwork evolves through the interaction and through the algorithms of these systems. And one of the very first systems that we developed in '94 was called Evolve, and it was also specifically reconstructed for the retrospective. And together with the help of the CKM, who actually took care of the whole technical and infrastructure reconstruction, because it's quite complex. And here we see a pool, a plexiglass pool that is filled with water. And from underneath, you see a projection. And when people look into this pool, they see forms swimming around. And these forms are created actually by people before, by themselves. So these forms here we see, these are new construction from 22. And this is from older times. I think this was in 2006. And what we did here is have people being able to draw shapes on a touchscreen. And then these shapes become like artificially living creatures. And their movement and behavior depends on how they were designed. So if you make a very dynamic design, these shapes become very fast and move around quickly in the pool. While if you make a not so dynamic design, they might be very slow and move very slowly. So the fitness of these, we call them creatures, was a function of the design, and the behavior was a function of their fitness and of their energy level. I think I don't have the time now to go into all the details, but there was a rather sophisticated methodology to design the fitness and speed of these creatures and their energy level, which led to a predator-prey behavior, where the fitter creature were usually faster to attack the weaker creatures, eat up the energy of the weak creature, and eventually, once they succeeded, they could find a mating creature to exchange the genetic code and create children creatures. And so you would get the rather complex interaction and a small evolutionary structure with emergent behaviors. But all of this you don't really need to know as a visitor, because you can experience it by yourself very intuitively. You first draw these forms on the touchscreen, as I mentioned, and once you have drawn them, we see here a man in the background at the OK Center. He draws a form, and then what you draw shows up as a 3D creature that moves like a jellyfish in the water. And then you can observe what it's doing. Most of the time, the creature wants to immediately gain energy by killing some other creatures. And once it succeeded to create or eat up the energy of the other, then he could look for a mating partner and get more energy and propagate. And so what's very interesting for us is that even though this piece is rather old, when we show it nowadays, this fascination for life and evolution and this link between real and virtual works still very well. And people usually stay very, very long time to try out really and try to design good creatures who can survive a long time and make many offspring creatures. So here we see several of these creatures, how they're created. Another older work from the 90s is this one called Phototropy from 93. Here we have also creatures, but this time it's more like butterflies and insects. And we see here the reconstruction from 22. People have a flashlight in their hand, and if they light onto the screen of the installation, little butterflies come out. This is an old image from 94. And the light here from the flashlight is used to attract the insects. And when these insects come, then they catch the virtual light and can slowly, when they come together, gain energy and create children. But this only works when they have eaten some virtually the energy of the flashlight. And it's not very easy to make them reproduce, because if you give them too much light, they burn and fall down. So you have to really find this right balance between giving light and energy, but not overdoing it. And often when we listen to people, they say like, it's like in real life, everything is very delicate. And of course, it's also entertaining and playful, but we also try to have this message of, that it's important to take care of living beings, especially also insects. So here we see somebody moving, and here they die. Then another work that was actually also shown in Brazil many times and is part of the Itaú Cultural collection. One of the editions is Live Writer. Again, insects, but this time a little bit more abstract insects. Here people write some text on an old typewriter. And as they write onto the keys, little spider-like creatures come out of the text, come out of the machine. They are projected on a piece of paper that moves with the machine. And the genetic code of the creatures that you see is actually the text. So it's almost like the text is becoming alive. And they sometimes look a little bit like maybe spiders. Sometimes they look a bit abstract, like just the body and legs. But their text and their text, the combination of the text that people write is actually the genetic code for these creatures. I have here another little video. Here, this is in Linz. I'm typing something, and then slowly I see that this text, first I see the letters, but when I turn the handle, then I see that this text is coming out of the machine and turns into a little spider that vigorously moves around. Some of them move better than others. And you never know exactly what they do, but they basically want to feed on text. So if you write text, they will come and snap up the text. And if they've eaten enough text, they will also grow and get bigger. These ones are not so aggressive. They don't kill each other. They only want to eat text that fits to their genetic code. Then here a newer work from 2020. It's a 4K animation. Here, Laurent and me, during the lockdown, it was actually during the lockdown, we started to notice, that, I don't know how about you, but we often throw away stuff carelessly, just put it in the trash and then it's out of sight and we forget about it. But once you start really to look at what you're throwing away in your trash, then, you start to pay more attention to it. And so we decided to photograph all the trash, household trash that we had, and use it and clean it up with Photoshop and use it and have programmed these artificial insects that Laurent programmed to eat up the trash that we had actually created or consumed by ourselves. So in this animation, computer-generated insects eat up trash and clean it away for us and make it turn somehow the background into a nice background of grass and moss. And this was made for a large installation that first was shown in Bolzano, but also is part of the retrospective. And if possible, we like to show it in these 360-degree projections all around us, where we see those insects, we call them scavengers, turning around and bringing the trash and cleaning it up again and bringing it back and cleaning it up in this kind of endless cycle of recycling and somehow bringing it back, which is, once you're immersed in this 360-degree panorama that starts out with some beautiful background of moss from our garden, and then suddenly these ants come and bring the trash and filling up the screen more and more with it. It feels kind of beautiful, but also at the same time a bit scary, because you notice, okay, wow, it's amazing what we are producing all day. carelessly by just throwing it away. And then, of course, I don't think we can count in the future on some artificial insects that clean it all up for us. But in this world of scavengers that happens, these insects come and clean it away for us again and turn it back into green, beautiful nature. Then we have other works that are dealing more about media art history. Here we were quite interested in this idea of, how to save media art artifacts. Of course, you can reconstruct them always, but at one point, I think we have to also live with the fact that a lot of these things are kind of hard to keep. So we developed artworks that use the motif of the fly a lot, and in an interactive version, but also as a motif for creating portraits. And here you see also one of our alumni interacting with a work called Portrait on the Fly. It's a monitor with a camera attached to it. And as she moves in front of the screen, she sees herself being displayed, and her portrait is created with a lot of flies. And we use the fly also as a motif of something that is like ephemeral and a memento mori. And this interactive work also gave us the idea, I think we've seen it already, or maybe I should just a short sequence. This work also gave us the idea to create actually printed portraits of people, to not only have the ephemeral interactive version, the one that we see here, where you see yourself constantly being constructed and deconstructed by 10,000s of flies that are swarming on this monitor, which has a very kind of beautiful, but also a little bit slightly creepy effect. And the same software was used also, or we still use it, is to create portraits by people. Here we see a portrait by Jascha Reinhardt, but we have also other portraits, Roger Malina, for example, here. And many of our friends, artists, curators, people from the media field, and we often take their portraits and then use our software to create those portraits and keep something a little more permanent and in the form of a digital print or of a plotter drawing, for example. Here, this is the work, we've seen it already, the one with the flies. So all this came out of this interest of the fly as a motif, but of course also as a way to keep works. The second last work I want to show you is the archive project, the one that I showed you before. It's actually a research project funded by the Ministry of Education, Science and Research. And it's a collaboration with the Donau University in Krems. You all probably know Dr. Oliver Grau, who was the head of this project, and also the Angewandte in Vienna. And Tiago Martins, who is a researcher in our department, developed this really wonderful HoloLens application where the data from our archive, and it still keeps growing with images, videos, keywords are being designed as a kind of swirl that is surrounding you. Here is a shot from the ZKM. And as you use your hand gestures, you can zoom into these planets of the artworks and get more information about these works. And eventually the long-term goal is also to link it to the ADA archive, which is hosted at the University of Krems, which is a big digital archive of media art. And eventually you also can connect to other artists' archives. And with your full body interaction in the augmented reality setting, you can connect to different data, texts, images, words, information that gives you this feeling of being immersed inside these archives. There are lots of special functions. You have also a pin function, like you would have a post-it. And it's still a project that is under development. And if you're interested, I have some information of how it works. So to sum up, I want to say that the retrospective gives an overview of selected works of the last 30 years. It focuses mostly on the interactive works that constantly change, develop, evolve using user interaction and internal algorithms. I've showed you that we use artificial life and generative systems since a long time. From an art historical perspective, we are very interested in this idea of the open artwork. According to Umberto Eco, when things are never the same, but they individually change and vary according to the user participation. And we call this the artwork as a living system. And of course, the underlying topics are always the human relationship to nature. We like to use a lot of plants and insects as motifs, and to show how we are, as humans, of course, part of a fragile ecosystem, and our interactions, may it be in the artificial worlds, but also in the real world, does have, of course, very strong consequences on our environment. And the last thing I want to show you is the book that was also produced in connection to the 30 years retrospective. We were very happy that Peter Weibel, who unfortunately passed away a few months ago, really supported this idea of making a book with all our 50 works that we've done since 1992. And all the works are documented in this book. It was edited by Karin Ohlenschläger, Peter Weibel, and Alfred Weidinger. There are many nice articles also by Richard Klusinski, Birgit Meersmann, Ingeborg Reichle, Siegfried Zielinski, Tomoe Moriyama, and Reinhard Kanonier. And I just show you here a few pages from the book. It's already out here in Europe, and I think it's already available now also in the US. Some articles. So we have the articles that are contextualizing the works, but also a lot of technical descriptions about the different work sketches, because Peter Weibel really wanted that we also show how we made these works and what goes into making such kind of developments. Here, for example, this is a work that was done a couple of years ago in Vienna, a big facade projection where digital ants are crawling around all over the building and creating trails, writing words. There's even an interactive part to it. This was a work that we did in Tokyo for augmented reality, large space. And this was the last time we saw Peter Weibel, was actually at our book presentation. And just a few weeks later, I think 2-3 months later, he became ill and unfortunately passed away. And yes, this is, I think, so far it. And I think I left a bit of time if we have questions. We have a bit of time for questions. And I thank you again for your attention and hope to, talk to you,
Christa.
possible through these interfaces. Hi, Rosangela.
Thank you, Christa, for the very beautiful presentation you did. Really, I am astonished again. Every time that I saw, I have my practical works that you made, like Evolve, the growing plants that you show in Mercosul Bienal, and it was very happy, not happy really in the really good terms, because you and Laurent, you couldn't come, but it was good because you could see how do you work, so the people, when people build this plants growing installation, you could also stay together and see how it's happening, and the poetry of the works. I think you always find a very beautiful way to mix poetry and the news and different ways to show the works and talking about life and about emotions and about possibilities. But I have one question, then a very short one, because I think many people want to ask you one congratulating you too for your excellent trajectory and works. And a question that You talk also a lot about the restoration and reconstruction of works, of your artworks. And I think that's very necessary because you need a memory. And that's very important. That's also a very big question have here in Brazil and all over the world. All the artists who work with media art have this very huge problem. And the question is, how do you and Laurent, did you balance your energy? Because that also asks you a lot of energy, to rebuild works and restart and go again, go back and go forth, whatever. Yes, I mean in this dialogue with the old pieces. Yes, and how do you balance the time when doing new ones and to reconstruct? How it works for you?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks
Thank you,
again for
Gilbertto.
your presentation. Yes.
Thank you so much, Gilbertto. Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think it's also, like you said, a real challenge to reconstruct all the pieces. And basically for the retrospective, we spent almost 2 years of preparing those 14 works. And of course, it's not just the matter of time and knowledge. And, Laurent has a lot of knowledge, of course, of reconstructing these pieces, but also a question of budget. So fortunately, we also, through Peter Weibel's real push, and also Karin Ohlenschläger, and later Mr. Weidinger, and also Imal, they all joined forces, to raise the money to get new computers, to also help us buy materials for creating those interfaces again. Because a lot of these pieces, of course, we in the basement, we have still bits and pieces laying around, but actually we had to reconstruct a lot of things. So Laurent spent really a lot of time of, remaking those things. But he was also quite impressed or happy about the fact that the software itself, as soon as he ported it to the new computers, the software itself had not to be changed so much. So he said what was actually pretty cool is that the software, once it was running, it was still the same as it used to be in the 90s. And that's why it's actually still looks basically how it used to look. Like, for example, Evolve, the creatures in the pool look pretty much the same as they used to look. Of course, now the images are much more sharp and more crisp. And instead of making a complicated back projection like we used to have in the 90s, we now have a very large screen instead that is put underneath the pool. But still, to manage all this, you have to make sure that the plans, the construction plans are redone, because nowadays the dimensions have changed, the resolution has changed. Then also in some cases you have to make sure, maybe adapt it a little bit to the new situation. So there's a huge effort for it. And we also have to live with the fact that some pieces, I don't want to say dead, but they are dormant. We can't show them now because we have not the time for reconstructing them. So okay. I'm very happy that at least some of them could be reconstructed now.
Thank you very much, Chris. Now I think Rosangela want to ask you a question. Oh, please.
Hi, everyone. Christa, love you. I'm missing you.
Hi, Rosangela.
Thanks to be this and thing for us. Hi, everyone. Hi, Paulo.
Vamos ver.
So, Christa, you
start video.
Okay, can I talk?
Yeah. Go
okay,
ahead.
Thank you.
It was just another sound.
Thank you. So, Christa, you both are really pioneers. Every one of us here in Brazil used to talk about your artworks in our class, in our speech, in everywhere. And I think that you made like an open, new way to saw the art in this connection with the biology, but also in this time of do art itself, using the generating art. But now we are seeing artificial intelligence growing so much fast that we saw that something very important is happen. I really don't know that artificial intelligence can do art. I really don't know that it creates. Anyway, it learns a lot about the kind of art we did. And of course, it learns about what kind of art you did, both of you. So I would like to know how you think about this kind of way that international artificial intelligence are working now. What do you think about this capacity that it has to create like art objects?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a super good question, and everyone is pondering about this question now also. You know, I'm not really so personally afraid of AI because I think it's just another tool that we as artists can use. But of course, to make good art with it, we have to choose or maybe frame it or use it in such a way that it also transports some meaning. I see a big potential in it, but I also know that for some artists it might be a danger. Just the other day on, I think it was on Arte Television, they interviewed a graphical artist who used to do a lot of like very sophisticated graphics for movies. And somehow his works are so popular on the internet that now an AI can redo what he did in his style, and he sort of complained about the fact that he's losing a lot of customers now because people are just, I mean, not people, but AI can imitate his style, and he's losing customers. So of course that's a bad thing. Exactly. And especially he was not even asked if it's okay to use his database and all his images for training an AI. So that's not nice, of course. But yeah, on the other hand, I see a lot of our students are also now looking into using AI for like more like critical projects.
Yeah.
But I think we are now on a journey where we don't know exactly where the train is going, but I have the feeling we should really not get too scared about this, but rather use the advantages that this technology has for our creative purposes. At least I hope that's not too naive, but that would be my
this is the problem that don't think so.
Let's go. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's
thank
go
you,
to the last question. Paulo Bernardino, please.
Hi, Paulo.
Unfortunately, you'll be the last one because you don't have time, because you should love to stay with you all the day. Come on, Paulo, please. You have no sound. You need to put only your sound.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, it was not connected. It was in mute. Hi, Christa, long time no see, but you are present in our, kind as even Rosangela said, in our classes, because it's always one way of, looking through your work and explaining how this developed. But my question is about this idea of making or remaking. What do you feel about that? Because somehow when we go to the works that have been doing in 90s, 70s, whatever, if you remake them, don't you think that you are losing something? I mean, you are, creating something different. Why not to try to preserve that first idea in terms even of, the time and the history of the things? Because when you make it again, you are actually doing something else. I would like just to listen to your point of view about this remaking and lose somehow, or transforming, I know, but what do you feel?
I think that's a very good point, and we had a similar discussion with Edmond Cochot. Back then, probably the very beautiful work that he has, La Plume, where you're blowing on this plant, and then all these dandelion seeds are coming out. And they kept also together with, I think, Michel Brett, they kept redoing the work many times. So it still looks a bit the same like it used to be, but it always has a new aesthetic to it. I think the motivation for us of redoing the works is because the works are not really working at all if you don't have anyone interacting with them. So that's why we want to redo them so that people can interact with them again, because they actually only exist at that moment when they are exhibited and when people interact with them. And that's why we really love to redo some of the works and recreate them, so we have the opportunity to show them again. Because maybe unlike an animation or maybe a still image, you don't have much that remains afterwards, you know. Maybe you have a few photographs from the situation, but it's more like performing arts, you know. It's like a theater piece in a way, or it's like a dance piece that you have to perform again by putting it again on stage. So I see it more as like almost linked to performative arts, or like an opera, or like a, you know, like a music piece that is performed again. So yeah, in that sense, I think we have to adapt it to the new technologies, because we can't use or bring up the old technology from back then, because it doesn't exist anymore.
Thank you. Thank you, Christa, for your answers. It was very, very enlightening. We start the day with your summertime there, and with you. Congratulations
Very
for
nice.
your trajectory, beautiful trajectory, for your wonderful speech. We are very, very happy to
Nada,
have
viu?
you here. And
Nada. Mas pelo menos não aparece mais essa câmera.
no, okay, and you are very happy, very, very, very happy to have you here, and thank you very much, you and Laurent, for your beautiful trajectory and work. And I look for the book very soon.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I ask
Thank you.
everybody to open the cameras and
So nice to see you. Bye. Hello, everyone.
Thank you.
Hi,
Ciao, everyone.
Thank
Malu.
you very much.
Take
Thank
Thank you.
Take a picture, yeah. Take a picture.
Okay,
Yeah, let's
you have
take a picture.
here,
Yeah.
but you have the record also, so you can see again and show the students and show the friends. Okay, so thank you very much again. It'd be a very big pleasure to be with you and start the day with you. Thank you, Christa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Roberto. Thank you.
Bye bye.
See you
Gente, agora,
soon,
and now
hopefully.
I fall in Portuguese.
Alberto.
Okay?
Hi, Alberto.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bem,
Bye.
queridos,
Hi,
agora
Artemis.
agradecer de novo todo mundo a entrada da Christa. A gente vai seguir o nosso dia também. Então, a gente vai ter uns minutinhos agora para a gente, quem quiser entrar a câmera. A próxima mesa também vai ser nesse link aqui, que vai ser sobre teoria, história e crítica da arte. Então, a gente vai ter a Ana Avelar, nessa ordem, a Daniela Bosso, a Nara Cristina Santos e a Priscila Arantes. Então, agora, quem quiser experimentar, por favor, aí fique aí à vontade. A gente tem mais uns 2 minutinhos para a gente experimentar a mesa. Quem quiser ficar, depois a gente tem a sequência ainda o dia inteiro hoje, ok? Então, prazer enorme. Vamos sair, quem quiser, para a gente tomar uma água e a gente já volta aí em 3 minutinhos.
Boa, Gil.
Obrigado.
Thank
you. Tá
Beijo.
tudo gravado, gente. Vai continuar.
Paulo!
Não, aí, Priscila, Suzy. Todo mundo, Milton.
Tudo bem? Cadê a Manuela?
Temos que fazer isso,
Saudade.
temos que fazer
Ó, o
isso
Milton aí
fisicamente.
também.
Temos que trabalhar nisso.
Cadê a Manuela?
Nara. Ei.
Milton,
Oi,
Nara,
Roberto.
Oi.
A Nara
até
tá
logo,
aqui
vemos mais
também.
tarde.
A Nara,
Tchau.
todo
Até.
mundo. Aí nos vemos
Até
mais
mais
tarde
tarde.
já. Até já.
É, isso. Até já.
Agora nós temos a
Tchau,
mesa.
tchau.
Tchau.
Tchau, Christa.
Ciao, everyone.
Tchau, Christa.
Tchau.
Pronto, ela já foi.